This meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Having said that, I will ask Councillor Tucky to take over. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I'll begin with the First Nations acknowledgement. The Mayor and Council wish to acknowledge the town of Fort Smith is located within Treaty 8 territory. Treaty 8 territory also encompasses the traditional homelands of the Salt River First Nation, Smith Landing First Nation, and the Indigenous Métis people of Fort Smith. These nations have maintained stewardship of their sacred lands throughout the generations. We honor your knowledge, teachings, traditions, and the land. We are mindful that colonization has not been kind. We respectfully recognize our generational histories and commit to strive for unity in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. The first thing on the agenda is can I have a recommendation to accept the agenda as presented?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Minutes from the Corporate Services Standing Committee.
The special meeting.
Sorry.
Discussion?
Special meeting first. You have to do this one first.
You have to, there's supposed to be a special meeting prior to the start of corporate.
Councillor Kathy?
Yeah, I got it.
So if you want to do that one, that agenda and stuff first, and then do your corporate one.
Okay,
Thank you.
so a call to order for confirmation of quorum. Seeing that we have quorum. Approval of the agenda as presented. Presentation of Community and Recreation Center Generation Design Contract.
I move we approve the agenda for the presentation of Community and Rec Center Generator Design Contract.
I second.
Discussion?
So what are we doing here? Just to go over this or?
Sorry, you need to have a vote to approve the agenda.
Okay. No, not this one.
Yeah, you did. Councillor Pearl and Councillor McDonald approved this agenda. Yeah. Oh,
All in favor? Carried.
Sorry, would you like us at this point, Mr. Chair, if we'll present the briefing note?
Ms. White, go ahead.
Thank you. So we had previously discussed at council the need to proceed with designing and purchasing and installing a backup generator system for the community recreation center, because it is our emergency shelter should we lose power or have an issue such as forest fire, like last season, have the hottest day of the year and have our power go out in the community. So we put out an RFP for design of that system, as well as design of the building in which it would be housed, creation of a tender document, and then the management of the construction and final inspection of the system as a part of the RFP. We had one response to the posted RFP, which came from TAG. which is Taylor Architect Group out of Yellowknife. We had set the budget for $55,000, and they came in slightly under that budget. We wanted to bring this as a special meeting item because we were hoping to get this project substantially done before the end of the year. So in order to keep them moving on the schedule that they've proposed for the design phase, they would have a startup meeting this week if possible, and hopefully have the entire project done by October 17th. And then be able to tender it out after that. Again, with the hope that we'll have a long enough season to be able to get everything in place to get the outside building and everything hooked up that needs to be hooked up to the facility by that time. So our recommendation is that we award the Fort Smith Community Recreation Center backup generator design and installation contract to Taylor Architect Group at a cost of $52,585. This is within we had $1 million that was set in the capital plan for this year, recognizing that part of it would have to go to design and procurement of the appropriate generator. So the remainder of the funds that was set aside in the capital project would be for the installation and purchase and installation of the appropriate equipment. So this is within the capital budget. It is over my spending authority, so it is to council for final approval, and we just wanted to get it done as quickly as possible so we can continue to move this project forward.
Councillor Campbell.
I'm all for this, but is it 2 months to get all the design and everything all together? Is that late, or can they, as soon as they have it done, are they going to be able to put it out to tender for building and acquiring the generator?
Ms. White.
I think at this point they have given us this timeline. We will ask them if there's a possibility of getting it done a bit sooner if we can. And as soon as they're able to provide it, we can then get out to tender. So if it is done prior to that, fantastic. We'll get it out to tender faster. We'd really like to get this done this year. But if it's not possible, then at least we have these documents ready to go for getting out to tender for immediate action in the spring as soon as construction season starts again.
Mayor Daniels.
Yeah, it would be nice to get it done this year, because we run into a problem every time the power goes out and that pool floods and it's going into our electrical room, and that's just way too dangerous. And eventually we're going to have to replace it anyway. So or put it in there, and it is a emergency backup, and something goes out there, then we don't have any lighting in that building. So I would like to see it this year instead of waiting for next year, just because there's other priorities that are hinging on this. So yeah, if they could do it sooner, that is great. But definitely we should deal with it this year. And I know, like all the rest, I just keep on pushing, but I think we could do it, and the window is still there to do it this year. And next year we'll look at something else. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Campbell.
I move that council award the Fort Smith Community and Recreation backup generator design and installation contract to Taylor Architectural Group at a cost of $52,585.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Unanimous.
I move that the special meeting be adjourned at 7:08 p.m.
I'll second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous.
He's absent.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the corporate services meeting for tonight. Any delegations? Seeing none, declaration of financial interest, statement of disclosure. Seeing none, carry on, review, and motion to accept the agenda as presented. Okay. Next item, the Corporate Services Standing Committee of July 5th, 2022 were reviewed and adopted at a regular meeting of council on July 19th. Visions and values and strategic plan was reviewed. Governance, Ms. Galucci. Hmm?
Says council priorities.
I said that, did I? Ms. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just give you a couple of updates on your governance items. We're still just awaiting a couple of reports on some of our infrastructure projects that we have outstanding. We've gotten a preliminary report regarding the slope monitoring, but we're waiting on the final report for that. We are still waiting on design options for our water intake, our main lift station, and the water tower upgrades that we were hoping to have done this year. We're having some delays from the engineering firm on that, but I hope to have that in the next week or so, so that we can provide that to you to review prior to the next corporate services. If we're really lucky, maybe even this week, so that we can have it at municipal services next week. We are currently, in regards to lands, you'll have a briefing note in your package for tonight around some housing issues and a bit of a discussion about how lands will fit into that. I have provided you with a bit of a summary. Some of it is confidential. I noted that on that around some of our human resources. We have just recently posted the pay and benefits clerk position, which will close on, I believe, on the 15th of August. And we've had two other positions that were posted that closed, and the appropriate staff are screening those positions, those applications right now. So we should have some action on those. Our lifeguard position, unfortunately, continues to be unstaffed. So we're continuing to be in a position where, unless we get a lifeguard who is or an individual who is out of school and is able to work during the daytime hours during the week, it is going to be very challenging for us to continue to operate the pool as it has been. I think the biggest issue around that is that, we continue to offer training. And in fact, we continue to offer training at free to no cost, or free to low cost, because we get subsidies. But we have not been able to entice anybody into that position. And we may have to look at compensation for that position and the role that position plays in the organization moving forward. We have a couple of other positions that have recently been vacated, or the staff member will be off for a period of time. So we will have some term positions that will be getting posted in the next little bit, in the next week or so. Yeah, we're just continuing to deal with those issues on a regular basis. And I will just touch base with regards to the last one around excellence of service, that this item kind of was meant to encompass council's discussions around ensuring that the town of Fort Smith is receiving the best services possible from the territorial government as well as the federal government and any other services that like the college or NTPC. We're still continuing to look at how NTPC is impacting our desire to go to become a much more green community and moving to using electric heat as our primary heat source in some of our facilities, and how their operations are negatively impacting us. And so we're going to just be bringing some more information to you guys around that next week, because we do have some funding to go electric heat in three of our buildings. And we have been reluctant to go ahead with that because we've been told that there isn't sufficient capacity for us to do that. But we're looking at different ways that we might be able to overcome those barriers. And we're hoping to have some information for you guys during municipal services around that next week. And I think that it puts us in a position where we can really, we have a bit more, I think we're going to have a bit more power. I'm not sure if that's the right word for it, a bit more strength in our position moving forward on those items. And I think that's it for the governance.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any questions? Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, just when it comes to NCPC and their electric power heating here, I'd kind of be reluctant for the town and for the private residents to go in there, because right now their lines are outdated and they have to change all the lines in Fort Smith to do that. And I know they were trying to sell it before to go electric, but I mean, they were nor here nor there at the time. And before we get to a stage where we're going to buy into that, then I would want to see, the lines upgraded and that they're capable for our demand. So I don't know, maybe look for district heating or something, or, but I'm looking forward for the information that you're bringing forward. It just like, they talked about this 15 years ago, and 15 years later, we still haven't went anywhere on our power lines. So I don't know, it was just a lot of talk for the last 15 years, I guess. So I'm not really interested in paying too much attention to it until they come up with something else that's going to work for us. Because every winter they phone our arena and tell us to shut off the ice rink. And when we met with the manager here a couple months ago, he said he would look into that, but until this day, I've never heard a word from it. So I don't know how that affects it, but the answer hasn't come back to our forefront yet. So anyway, just what I had to say there. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further discussions? Ms. White?
Yeah, I think the mayor is absolutely correct. There's been lots of talk and not a lot of action. And I'm hoping that with some of the work that Ms. Palucci and Mr. Grenier have been doing and investigating some of these options around our electric heating possibilities, once we've kind of got a bit more of that information gathered and formulated, hopefully we'll be able to address some of Mayor Daniels' concerns, because we don't want to continue to have to put these projects off because NTPC's perhaps not playing the game, or is playing the game, depending on how you look at it. But I know council has a lot to say and has done some strong advocating for the community in regards to electric power.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kidd is home unwell and has been for the last little bit. So I'll just give you a quick update. We have recently lost our pay and benefits office, our clerk, so we're posting that position, or have posted that position, and we'll be closing that soon. So hopefully we'll have some interest from some local candidates. Other than that, it's sort of business as usual. Moving through the summer months, we are going to be starting to work on the preliminary budget items, both our O&M budget as well as our capital planning. Near the end of August, we'll start that process. And that way we'll be able to get it to you quickly in the fall. So that community service or corporate service department will be very actively involved in those preliminary budget preps.
Thank you, Ms. White. Accounts payable. Councillor Campbell.
On accounts payable, check number 39451, the Profit Corporation, play equipment, 6,788. They're a business from down south again, and we're not putting it out to tender locally again. Administration keep thinking they could bypass buying from local when we preach it all the time. We're not doing it here. And we brought this up before, it's still not being followed. Thanks.
Ms. White.
Sorry, I'm not sure what the question is.
Why are we still using outside sources for buying play equipment then? When they're not local buying?
So we have asked local businesses if they would be able to start working on some of these purchases for us. And the local businesses that we would typically go to, such as Kaiser's or the Northern Store, have not been timely in their response. So we haven't done it locally because we need this equipment in a fairly timely fashion. We put a lot of things out to tender locally. And we purchase a lot. We purchase the majority of our purchases are done locally. And so this one just wasn't.
Councillor Campbell.
The Northern and Kaiser, there's also the N60, there's TDC, there's Alden, there's everybody in town here that could bid on this stuff. And we're not using local. You're saying in not timely fashion, anybody wants to make a few bucks on this. And here we are just bypassing it all again. Thanks.
Any further discussion on accounts paid? Seeing none, we'll move on. Correspondence. Councillor Campbell.
Did we hear any more in our letter that we sent to supporting Frida Marcellus on the present location?
We have not. Communication Committee is going to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss a response to the cabin radio news story that was done last week.
Councillor Christopher.
Did we not receive a letter requesting donations for the slow pitch tournament in September from Teresa Burke? Has there been a response? I don't see it on the list. Thank you.
Email request.
Okay, I talked to the SAO about it, and I just responded to her on phone that she could go ahead and raise her money that she wants in that, and that we will put out the outhouses and probably picnic tables and whatever they need, a tent perhaps, and the rest is all on them. They were looking at using the arena, but we couldn't do that event, so they'll probably have to go to the Métis and ask for the hall or something. But no, I just dealt with that one on the phone. So, and they were quite happy with it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Crowell.
Did we respond to the Métis regarding the Red Fire Hall?
no, we haven't yet because they're still going through their stuff, and we need to sit down on that one to really. We need to meet probably a good 5 or 6 times on it and to get a good handle of what went there. So, and we're still looking forward to that. So it'll probably be in the early winter, I'm assuming, because probably everyone's traveling right now. So, Cynthia.
Ms. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The mayor and I actually sat down with the president and one of the other council members from the Métis before I went on holiday. And at this point, we're not going to do anything to the fire hall right now because of a historical agreement that was made between one of the mayors and the Métis, but there's no formal documentation and no lands transfer process that occurred around that, and no motion of council that we've been able to locate. So at this point, as the mayor said, it's going to take more discussion and more engagement from council as a whole.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to license report. Any questions on the license report? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Is that just licensing like for business, or is it like for quads and stuff like a skidoos? Okay. I was wondering if I was being shortchanged paper.
Councillor Campbell.
Is this Melanie Jewel Art? Is she the one doing that thing in Vancouver? Well, good for her.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just in a Melanie, I had a thought there that when she took off to Vancouver and that, it would be really nice if we had a wall or something that she could do one for us to push this kid further on her career, and for someone locally to make something here. I think it would be really beneficial. Something for council to think about, probably like next year or something. Well, so thanks.
Any further discussion? Move on to bylaw policy review and development. Ms. White?
Sorry,
Uh,
currently we
okay,
don't
well,
have anything that's right before council. There are 3 or 4 bylaws that are just about ready to go to the committee for review. And then we're just finishing up the lottery licensing bylaw for final review by the committee and hopefully to come to council in the fall.
Thank you, Ms. White. We'll carry on to administration. Ms. White?
Thank you. So we have a few briefing notes for you today. The first one is related to our ICIP funding for the renewal of Riverside Park and upgrading of the snowboard sliding hill. We have received funding in the amount of, sorry, I'm just trying to roll through my screen here, in the amount of $738,750 from the Investing in Canadian Infrastructure Program, Cultural Spaces funding that is administered by MACA, but it's federal funding. This is a 75-25 funding pot. We had identified $985,000 in the capital plan in anticipation of receiving this funding. So we have the $246,250 that is our 25% contribution already identified in the capital plan. This work will include the design and installation of permanent washroom space, as well as storage building for both the snowboard club and the town equipment. So we have a number of sleds and tubes and things like that that we use for winter events that we would like to store there rather than transporting them back and forth from other buildings. It will have a warming shelter. There will be a redesign of the lookout platform, as well as the installation of a lift for the snowboard and sliding hill. This funding is available to us until September 1st, 2027 for the completion of these projects. So what we need is a recommendation from council to approve receiving this funding as part of the funding contribution agreement. We have to have that motion of council, and then the mayor will sign off on it. So we're just looking for that motion from council.
I move that council approves the ICIP Cultural Spaces Funding Contribution Agreement with MACA in the amount of $738,750.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Councillor McDonald.
One question, does this include the boardwalk as part of the project? Maintenance or upgrade to the boardwalk?
So we would be looking at, upgrading the boardwalk as well as, and or alternatively, moving the walking trail to the other side of the road and paving it, rather than continuing to have that boardwalk, which requires a fair amount of upgrade. So those are 2 options around how we manage the boardwalk.
Thank you, Ms. White. Councillor Campbell.
Are we going to get the lift in this year or not?
Ms. White?
We're not. We've been trying to work with our local engineering firm to try and get that done. One of the biggest barriers, Councillor Campbell, was that we didn't actually have all the specs for the lift. So our local engineering firm just received those in the spring. So based on his other work, hasn't been able to get it done. I'm going to be speaking to him when I get back about timelines and whether or not he can continue to do this project, or if we have to look for engineering support elsewhere.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Daniels.
Now, this project, this is only to the skateboarding place on the hill, the funding, and when does the funding will be here?
Ms. White?
So it's sort of an upgrade of the whole Riverside Park area to make it a more pleasing outdoor venue for the winter. So we're talking about, installing some nice fire pits and benches, as well as washrooms and a warming facility, as well as then redesigning redesigning the lookout and upgrading the hill. So the funding, as soon as we sign it, then we can start accessing the funding. This is a sort of we pay out of pocket, they reimburse as we submit our reporting.
Okay, no, I was just taking into consideration that we actually have 2 hills. And I wouldn't mind to take some of this money to the second hill, which is really not much. I'm just looking at lighting, fireplace, and maybe to straighten out that hill before winter comes on. It wouldn't be much. It'd probably be like 15,000. And then probably the rest could be used on the other place. If we're going to do this, then we might as well do it at both hills, because the little kids actually at the welfare center actually use that lots. I don't find it safe enough for them, so I wouldn't mind to do some work there with the lighting and taking out the bumps and a fireplace for them. I already got consent from Royal Canadian Legion on doing that, so it would be great just to finish them both off.
Or Ms. White, you want to respond to that?
Sorry, yeah, this was specifically for this area. But I think that if we want to look at one, we'd have to go back and look at which part of that is town land versus commissioners and or land that belongs to the Legion. So it's not necessarily as easy as just making a decision to upgrade that area. It is a well-used facility. I don't know if I'd take all the bumps out, because I think that's the part they like the most. But yeah, there's definitely the option for us to look at that as part of the 2023 capital plan, and figure out what the best solution is, and work with other stakeholders in that area.
Thank you, Ms. White. Councillor Campbell.
The lookout out on the riverbank there at the park, are we going to redesign it or do any major retrofit or whatever to it? And if so, can we get a cost, if the paving company's in town here, at least around there, for any handicapped wheelchairs want to go up the ramp or anything, so they could park the car there and they could get out on a hard surface? Just a good idea, I think.
Ms. White.
Yeah, that's actually a really great idea that Councillor Campbell brings forward. I have spoken to the paving company. They are not anticipating being gone from the community after this year. They're actually tentatively thinking about bringing their bigger plant up this year, and leaving it again to overwinter in the community, so to be available to us again next year. I do think it is worth asking them what adding that to this year's work might be, the top of the hill there, as well as whether or not we want to put in a little bit more paved parking adjacent to the washroom area. So again, that washroom area would be easier to access. We want that to be an accessible building. The idea being that, based on the Conybeare Park concept, and council, this is just sort of the team spitballing on this, is taking that Conybeare Park concept and extending that to our other permanent facilities in our parks. So, essentially the same kind of feel and design to those buildings at Riverside as we would have in Conybeare. So the building that's in Riverside Park having that feel, but also seeing if we can translate that feel to the actual lookout area, and looking for materials that are going to be more resilient than the lumber that we're currently using.
Thank you, Ms. White. Mayor Daniels.
Yeah, that's good to know that they're going to be here and they're bringing their bigger plant, because I know we had some discussions on our paving for this year. And I always believed, we had good discussions on there. We ran through it, and what we're doing this year, I think we should just go ahead with it. And next year we'll continue on and doing what we missed out. So I do see it like it's probably a 2-year program there. So I didn't really get too excited about it. It's just growing pains, and yeah, we'll continue next year. We'll put it in the budget and we'll finish it off by next year. So thanks. I think everything just falling into place. Thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
Second briefing note is in relation to Habitat with Humanity, Habitat for Humanity, NWT. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Mrs. Colucci, because she's actually, the request for this came in while I was after I'd started my leave. So I asked Mrs. Colucci to step in and take on this project. So I'll turn it over her for the briefing note, and then if I have any additional thoughts on this, I'll step in afterwards.
Yeah, so we were contacted by the executive director of the NWT branch for Habitat for Humanity, and they've been working in the last couple of years. A lot of the homes that they are building have been in Yellowknife, and this year they've branched out to include a home build in Hay River as well, and they're looking to move to other communities in the NWT that are still accessible for resources and things like that. So Fort Smith came up in conversation for their board. And at that point, she reached out to us. So I've included some of the information that she shared with us. One of the biggest things that the town would have to commit to this would be a service lot. So the donation of a service lot. They bring a modular home in. They rely on local contractors to do the finishing work. So it creates work in the community for that. They look for volunteers and things like that. If they need to, they bring in, if nobody's available to do the work. And the end result is that there's an application process for families to apply. So there are criteria that people have to meet to qualify for the home. And then they're expected to complete 500 volunteer hours in the community as well. And then they end up owning the home so they can build up equity and things like that. So it's a really interesting concept. It would be really exciting. So they were slotted as a potential site for 2023. And this is just the preliminary, seeing if we're interested. If we are, then it would go back to their board, because their board still has to make a decision on where they would end up going. So this is just the beginning to see if we're interested, and then it goes back to them to make their final decision about where they'll end up for 2023. But if there's any questions or anything like that, just, let me know.
Mayor Daniels.
Yeah. Is there any financial that we have to put up, or is it just the land? Excuse me.
Ms. Galucci.
It is just the donation for the land. So, I mean, it has an impact on proposed revenue, right? Because if we're going to donate the lot, then we no longer have that as a lot available for anyone to buy. So that's the choice to be made. But that's financially, that's all that they require from us, the town.
Mayor Daniels.
And they're out of Yellowknife? Like, if they're out of Yellowknife, it'd be good to have I don't know, we're supposed to go up there, right? It'd be nice to meet them up there as a good sit-down meeting. Because I often thought of them, but I didn't know where they were. It was the House for Humanity. I wouldn't mind put on the table the issue of those small units, like where a man, wife, and child could start out. It's a starter out home, and then later move to a bigger home. I wouldn't mind to get into some kind of discussion like that. Like what do we have to contribute other than the land to it? There's other factors here, that play a role that could probably help us out. Yeah, so I wouldn't mind to meet with them. This is what that I'm interested in is the smaller homes, because right now the younger people working, they're not going to be able to afford a $200,000-$300,000 home. So my thinking was you start out with these small homes, and I did have a place to pick it out that we could carry through with it. Yeah, but if we had a backer there that could walk down that road with us, and I think it would be a good thing for Fort Smith and probably other communities as a younger generation growing up and they're still living at mom and dad's house and they can't really get out because there's no housing out there. I think this would be a wonderful thing to take a look at and see if we could actually do it. Thanks.
Councillor Crowell.
You've made some very valid points, Mayor Daniels. I was at the anti-poverty working group in March, and there was a presentation from Habitat for Humanity. They have very strict guidelines for what they can do and that type of thing, and for criteria for people to apply for this. And as Mrs. Colucci has said, that the town is required to provide the land in lieu of as our donation. But I do have a question with them, and I forgot to have asked them, is if there is somebody who has a private piece of land, if they're able to donate that as well for a tax thing, that would be something, because I know we have limited lots available. So I'm just wondering if that might be able to be a factor in there as well. And do we actually have anything that we would be able to present for this?
Ms. Colucci.
So I met with Elena Ward, and she's the executive director. So at this point, I don't know about whether or not a private citizen could donate land, but that's something I can find out fairly quickly. She identified that us donating a lot is the largest part of our contribution, other than promoting that they're coming and helping to find volunteers and things like that. But as you said, there's very strict criteria around the homes that they build, and they're geared towards families. So they're not, I know that we definitely have a housing crisis around those smaller units, but it's kind of outside of what their purview is, because they're only doing 2 houses a year. And that's kind of their limit with what they're managing. Outside of that, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yes, we do have vacant lots at this point that the town owns that we could. So choosing a lot would be the next step if we were identified as a community that they actually were going to come to. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Colucci. Councillor McDonald.
As part of this donation, would there be an expectation that we would waive development fees, that sort of thing as well? Or is that typically part of the project?
Ms. Colucci.
I would have to ask just to be sure. So the donation of the lot was all that was identified in the meeting, but I can ask about development.
Ms. White.
So you just kind of bandied about a couple of ideas around lots. But I think essentially if council wants to proceed with this, what we're kind of looking at for tonight is, do you want us to move forward with the next steps? Recognizing that if we are selected, we're probably looking at about a $65,000 donation to the project. But it does get a family into a home that they will own, and that they will put sweat equity into the building of, rather than having to have the down payment. So that's a bonus for our community. This particular organization, as Mrs. Clucci's indicated, because it's an international organization that has a lot of big funders, I think that it's fairly fixed in what it can offer. And the mayor and I have had many conversations about our housing needs, and how we can creatively support housing. And again, hopefully our housing project will start very soon, once we're able to identify someone to work on that project. That I think that, this is a great opportunity for us to talk and get community members interested in building houses for sale, rather than building houses for people who want houses built, potentially, or building houses for rental. But, the next steps are recognizing that the donation will probably be around $65,000 worth of property. And, do you want us to keep moving this forward?
Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, well, I, for one, would like to continue going on, moving forward here. Because this is a issue that we're going to have to deal with in the future again. So this is a good start to it. And I would definitely like to meet with them. And for the lot being 65, I think it's only right that if they're putting something in, then we got to meet them too. So I don't really have a problem with that. It just, when do you need the land? Because I could jump in my vehicle tomorrow, start riding around, and I'll look for a lot for you by 5. So holy, just joking.
We do have some lots identified.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Galucci?
And so the executive director also offered to give a presentation to council if they would like more information. So after this, if you'd like her to come and meet, she said she could be available for possibly community services next week.
I move
Thank
that,
you.
oh, sorry. I move that the town of Fort Smith support the Habitat for Humanity project and explore opportunities to identify a property within the community and have the executive director present the details of the program.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Discussion?
We're not saying yes or no to this right now. We're just asking, okay, that's all I want to know.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Ms. White?
I think the final item that was on the agenda originally was the green infrastructure update from Ms. Colucci. This is kind of what I was alluding to in regards to NTPC stuff. And I think that Ms. Colucci and Mrs. Colucci and Mr. Grenier and I just need to have a couple more discussions, maybe one more discussion, before we bring our final information to you. So we're going to ask that this item come back to you as an update during municipal services next week, during our capital update.
Thank you, Ms. White. Councillor Crowe?
I move that Deputy Mayor Herron, Councillor Bolio, and Ferguson be excused from tonight's meeting for corporate service.
I'll second.
All in favor? Unanimous. The date of the next Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting will be held on September 6th, 2022. And a motion for adjournment?
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:53 p.m.
I'll second.
All in favor?